What is going on, YouTube? It is Parker here, bringing y'all another basehead video. And in today's video, working on Project Sequoia, and we're going to be looking at this teeny little Taramps that fits in the palm of my hand, but should deliver some pretty good power. Let's get into it. Now, y'all know I have really enjoyed having my Taramps amps, mainly because they take up such little space for the amount of power that you get. This is my Taramps MD12K over here, and these are my two Taramps base 8Ks over here. Now, I'm not exactly sure what order I'm uploading these videos, so you can't see the subs are in. It may be the next video I show me putting all these in, or this video maybe after that. Not 100% sure. Now, first off, I want to give, I think it's brearthquake.com, a huge shout out for sending me this amp for the channel. Guys, really appreciate people just reaching out and supporting the channel. It's a lot of work what I do here, and all this stuff is not cheap, so I really do appreciate it. They are a Brazilian dealer, but they do have a warehouse here in the United States. Right now, they're dealers for Taramps and Stetson, but they will be having other Brazilian companies on there soon, so that is awesome, guys. They have all kinds of stuff on here, so definitely go check them out if you need a Taramps or Stetson or something like that. So, of course, y'all, we have the TS400x4. Now, just to give you a little comparison, here's one of the older style DS800.4s, which is still a teeny amp, but this guy just dwarfs it, guys. Obviously, it's half the power, but well under half the size. This little amp is tiny. Y'all, I have a pretty small hand, and it fits like in the palm of my hand, no problem. Just crazy how much power these little teeny amps are putting out now. Let's take a quick look at the specs from the Taramps website. This is a Class D amplifier, of course, 4 channels. Now, here is kind of the weird thing that they do that other companies don't necessarily do. You know, normally when an amp says 400x4, that means it's 400 watts times 4 channels. Whereas in this case, the total output of this amp is 400 watts. So it's 100 watts per channel. And of course, that says that right here at 13.8 volts. At 2 ohms, it is 100 watts times 4 RMS. At 4 ohms, it is 63 watts RMS. And then bridged at 4 ohms, it is 2 times 200 watts RMS. Here are some other specs. It is full range. It does go all the way down to 18 hertz, so you could run a sub off of it if you wanted to. We, of course, have our ground, positive, and remote wires. And then we have the speaker wires. Now, they're a little weird, the way that they do this, but it works, so it is what it is. They have their positive, the negative, and then the middle one is the negative for this channel and the positive for this channel. Y'all, I have no idea how it works, but it works just fine. So it is kind of weird when you're looking at it, but it gets the job done. And then, of course, you can bridge if you're running at 4 ohms. On this side, we do have our 4 inputs. Then we have our level or gain for each input, and then you can set it to low pass, full, or high pass filter. Since we are just running speakers, we will have it on high pass filter. Y'all, it's just crazy how small this thing is. If you're in a situation where you need a really tiny amp, you're really limited on space like me. I'm pretty limited on space here. This guy is awesome, just being so incredibly small. Also, a lot of my subscribers in one of the previous videos mentioned they really wanted to see my Subaru, so at the end of this video, I'll give y'all a quick rundown of that. Now, for the Sundown show, I may actually use the DS800.4 that I have, since it is a bigger amp, but can't hurt to hook this guy up and see how it does. If I'm happy with it, I'll, use it. If not, I'll use it for something else. Might use it for this shop, and we'll use the bigger Taramps that we got over there. Now, back here, we have most of the wires already ran here. We have these RCAs, and these are actually really nice RCAs by New Concept. This is their triple shield twisted RCAs. These things are really nice. A good thing about these, you can run them up along a power wire or whatnot, and you won't get any static or engine noise through them. So I really wanted to make sure I had good ones, just so I wouldn't have to worry about that. We also have our remote wire to turn the amp on and off. And then we've got speaker wire back here. These are ran up to the front, so I can just hook them into the doors real easy, and then we'll have the front doors hooked up. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen these doors, but if you haven't, these are the doors that I made. They are by no means perfect, guys. The pleather that I put on did not come out as neat as I would have liked it to, but I may pull it out and do a Rhino line or something like that. But anyway, we have 4 DS18 speakers. They're each 8 ohm speakers, and we have them all ran in parallel, so that brings me down to 2 ohms. And then we've got 4 of the DS18 billet super tweeters. So the tweeters are actually powered off my head unit amp, which seems to be working pretty well. And then I have the DS18 speakers ran off of a mini 50x4 Alpine mini amp, the Alpine KDP 455U. So I'm going to show you all what that sounds like, and then we'll swap out to the Taramps and see if that's any better. Now I know it's going to be pretty impossible to really show you guys how much louder the little Taramps is, assuming it is louder, but I'm going to do my best, guys. So we're going to hook it up here next and see how it does. Got the amp hooked up. Got it all real clean and safe. I may have to swap these over. I'm not exactly sure. But so far, so good, guys. Also had to pull up my radio to hook up the RCAs. I had different RCAs right there that were running down to the mini amp, but got all that hooked up. And I got all the speakers hooked up going to the doors, so should be able to test it out. So let's see. Oh, we got a little blue light over there, so seems to be on and good. So even though I have the high pass filter on the amp on, there still is a lot of bass that gets pushed through the amp. So I had to go into the head unit and turn it down a little bit more, because these things are definitely louder, but it also really was pushing in just a lot more of that low frequency than the Alpine amp was pushing. So just kind of interesting there. Anyway, had to turn it down on the head unit. Now when I have the subs hooked up, of course I have the high pass filter on the head unit itself on, since the subs will be on, so we won't need any bass to go through the speakers. So that should fix that, but just kind of interesting. one really exciting thing to notice, guys. We have it on with the song playing. And there is very minimal static going through these things. If y'all will remember, when I had that awesome $400 Sundown amp in here, the SFB 500.4, there was a ton of static going through these things. And it was, I mean, it was terrible. So finally I had to run a ground from the head unit RCA back and ground it to the RCA on the amp when I had it mounted. And even then, there was still some static. It didn't sound great. But this little $90 Taramps, no static whatsoever. And overall, guys, this thing sounds pretty good. My overall takeaway, guys, it does seem to get pretty loud, but this amp just does seem to push the bass frequencies a little bit harder than the old amp did. Now, I think a lot of that is just this is a 100-watt RMS amp as opposed to a 50-watt, so I think a lot of that was really kind of playing into that, but with those lower frequencies, definitely didn't sound as good. So, but once I turned those down a little bit, the clarity just seemed to go up a good notch, which is, of course, perfect. So for now, we're going to leave this guy hooked up, but if I decide I want it to be louder, we will hook up the 800.4. So for now, I'm going to mount this guy. Now, the great thing about this guy being so tiny is I can stick this thing anywhere. It'll fit right in here just perfect. Whereas if I was to use this guy, it'll fit in there, but it'll be really tight. Well, I could try to mount it up here somewhere or something like that. I'm not sure. But for now, like I said, we're going to mount this little guy, mess around with it for a little while, see how I like it. Once again, huge thank you to Marlon. I think his name is Marlon. I'm so sorry if I'm getting that wrong. But thank you so much to Marlon over at, I believe it's brearthquake, for sending me this awesome little amp. Man, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for supporting the channel. Guys, there will be a link in the description to his website. Go check it out if you want to check out some Brazilian products. Okay, for now it looks a little bit messy, but it really isn't quite as bad as it looks, guys. I think when I mount either this amp or the other amp, finally, I'm going to build some sort of little tray up here so I can have it above all my grounds that I have ran. Just so it'll be a little bit neater looking. Not exactly sure, but I will figure that out, guys, when it comes to it. Well, y'all, for being such a small footprint amp, I am super happy with it. It does sound pretty good in my opinion. I'm sure some amps are going to have better quality and whatnot. But for me, I think this thing is just fine. And I think for 90% of the people out there, they're going to be just happy with it. All right, real quick for everybody that wanted a video on the Subaru, here it is. Going to run over everything real quickly. Maybe at some point I'll give a longer, more detailed video. But a bunch of y'all were asking, so going to go through it real quick. This is a 2002 WRX. I bought this thing 6 years ago, and I have done a ton of work to it over the years. Right before I got it, it was repainted. It's a really pretty paint. It's the World Rally Blue, but it has a purple kind of undertone to it. So that is really cool. Have a wingless trunk, as you can see. I've got Rhoda, I think it's DPT wheels. They're 18s by 9.5. We'll start with the interior. First off, it has a full STI interior swap. We have a Momo race steering wheel. I have an STI gauge cluster. Everything works on it. It's just kind of cool. You can sit here and you can adjust the shift light. So if I want it to turn on at 5 grand, I can do that. So that's really neat. Got, of course, all my usual gauges that you would expect. I've got a JVC, it's a KW unit. This thing is really awesome. Of course, has Apple CarPlay and a backup camera, which is super handy, guys. Now, all the old OGs are gonna remember this, guys. This is the Rockville K9 V2 from way back in the day. This thing has been in here for about 3 years now, and it still works. Of course, I don't really beat on it that hard, but not bad for a 10. Then I've got a Kenwood 1000-watt unit back there. Again, guys, this car does not need a lot of bass. It rattles a lot and really isn't that enjoyable with a ton of bass. But I do like to have some decent sounding music. I also have Alpine Type S component speakers in here. So you've got I think it was a 6.5-inch mid-range down there and a little tweeter up here. Okay, let's see the good stuff that everybody wants to see. So this has a full STI drivetrain swap. So first off, it has a full 6-speed STI swap out of a 2002 STI from Japan as well. And when I did that, I did the entire rear end. I've got the Brembo brakes. I had to swap out the hubs. Oh, let's see. Everything in the rear end has been done. I've got sway bars, full custom exhaust. I have a cutout right there. All kinds of good stuff. As I'm sure some of y'all have seen, we've got an excess power battery, AGM battery up here. Of course, to run the sub, I have a high power fuel pump and a bunch of other cool stuff. Now, for all you guys that know Subarus, this has a 2.5 STI 257 bottom end on it, and it had the newer crankshaft in it, King racing bearings, and it's got forged pistons and rods, and then it's got the 2.0 heads on it, because this does not have variable valve timing, but it's got upgraded valves, lifters, retainers, and it's got BC Stage 2 cams. So it's got a real nice look to it. This is one of the only Subarus I've ever seen that is cammed. There's a few of them out there, but most of them are not. Got an Aeromotive fuel regulator gauge, all AN lines, 950cc modified Denso injectors. We have a Force Performance, which is a FP Red Turbo with a custom mount for the tile external wastegate. This is the bigger one. I think it's 44 millimeters. And then this is, I believe it's a 50 millimeter tile blow-off valve. This thing runs between 19 and 21 pounds of boost, depending on the weather. It's on a super conservative tune. I need to go get it taken to get a real good tune done to it, but honestly, I've been so busy, and I'd have to drive several hours to get a really good tune, so it's got what it's got on it. It does pretty good. It runs 7.9s in the 8th mile at the drag strip that we have nearby. So overall, it's a pretty fun car. I've got Circuit Demon Hex headlights. Guys, these things cost an arm and a leg. They're really cool, but geez, they were expensive. You've got 3 different LEDs here, and in there. You can change each one of them different colors separately. You can have them strobe, you can have them run through colors, you can do whatever you want. They're pretty cool. And then it's got HID running lights, and they are really bright. I'll start it up for y'all real quick so you can hear the chop. Y'all, it's been a lot of fun. I have done every single thing to this car, including completely building the motor. If you go way back to the early videos on this channel, you'll actually see videos of me building the motor and whatnot. So kind of wild, guys. Yeah, I think 2018 is when I built the motor, but it's still running, so who knew? Well, y'all, that was the Subaru. Really appreciate y'all saying you wanted to see it. I absolutely love that thing. And when I first got started with YouTube, I started making videos with that. So I just absolutely have loved working on that thing. So really cool to get to share that with y'all. But guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon on Project Sequoia, getting this thing ready for the 2021 Sundown Audio Show. Y'all, that's gonna do it. More videos coming soon. And like always, keep basing on.